the eve of the fourth Ashes Test. The world's cricket eyes focus firmly on the Northwest, which is actually the home of the 212th men. I'm Rob Taylor, this is George Bottomley, and this is our Old Trafford preview.
It is, and looking at the screen that shows us the camera, it looks like we're in quite a dark room.
Yeah.
I like to go in this attic, but I think that's quite fitting with the skies of Manchester, the grey skies of Manchester as the rain tumbles down. It looks like it's going to be a rainy week.
Yeah, this is, in case you're wondering if the weather's always like this in July, it pretty much is. Yeah. July and August in the Northwest are pretty grim times, aren't they? I think we get the worst of the weather. Is it the Pennines? Is it the...
As soon as the school holidays start, the rain comes in.
So where we've been, there's been a lot happened since we did our last podcast. So when we did our last actual podcast, I know we did a couple of live shows in between there, but I think we just concluded the Edgbaston Test, a gripping Test match. England fell short. Very similar sort of result at Lords. I've developed a gum infection. There's a congratulations in the house with yourself. You got engaged.
Yes, me and Nina got engaged in Croatia. So that was nice.
Yeah.
Dubrovnik, Hvar and Split we went to. So I've given you all the debrief. I won't bore our listeners.
Well, congratulations.
But yeah, thank you. Cheers.
So what would this cap it off as like the perfect summer? Engaged, great Ashes series. What could go better in your life right now?
Yeah. I must admit it was like 2 days after and I hadn't really listened to much of the cricket.
How good is the cricket?
But I was sat on the beach listening to the last day at Headingley on TMS and I was stressed.
Stressed?
Yeah, you were winding me up because you were saying, oh my God, like we're going to do it. This is easy. I was like, this does not sound easy. And it didn't sound easy whatsoever. So come on, tell me, Headingley, how do you see it through your rose-tinted spectacles, Rob?
Well, it was obviously one we had to win. I think the Omens were good, weren't they? England have got a pretty good record at Headingley. I think, obviously, when you look to the team sheets, I straight away looked at the balance of the side. And I saw Chris Woakes in there. Jimmy Anderson had not really been his best the first couple of tests. And obviously the introduction of Mark Wood, who was, I believe, clocking the nets near to 100 miles per hour.
Yeah.
So I think everyone was really excited to see him bowl. But the balance of that bowling lineup looked a lot better than it had been in the first two matches. You sort of do think, don't you, I know there's been so many twists and turns in the first three test matches, but you think had Mark Wood been available in that sort of final into Edgbaston, would have England have had enough to sort of blow Australia away? Such fine margins, isn't it? But it's kind of summarises his selection, doesn't it?
It's been a very short series, but it feels like a long time ago that now, doesn't it? That final day at Headingley. It is ifs, buts and maybes, but Wood does bring something else to this England lineup, doesn't he? He really shows you what top pace does at the top level.
Yeah, I think at Lords as well, our tail looked pretty long, didn't it? And I think once you slot Chris Woakes in there, coming in at 8, I think he bats that. Just looks so assured, doesn't he? Someone who's played tons of international cricket, tons of county cricket. He's very much Mr. England, Chris Woakes, isn't he?
Yeah.
The common phrase for Chris Woakes seems to be, play him in England, but don't take him on the plane.
Yeah.
Which, is, I guess, a little bit harsh, but in the context of big series where England, have required people, he seems to certainly be a lot more effective on home shows.
In England tests, home tests, he averages in the low 20s with the ball and around 35 with the bat. So genuine all-rounder in home conditions. It feels like Headingley, although I didn't see much of it, was the test match of the squad players kind of showing the depth of the squad. Obviously, Mitchell Marsh did very well. Wood did well. Woakes did well.
Yeah.
Kind of, we're starting to see, I suppose, how much strength in depth both of these sides have and how competitive the squads are, not just the first 11. I think
it's raising your game for the occasion, isn't it? Because even if you're a fringe player in this Ashes series, you know that any chance you get to sort of come into the series is a chance to sort of write your Ashes story, isn't it? What Mark Wood will look back on this, even if England gone to lose this series, he'll look at the contribution he made at Headingley and how that was kind of his moment. There's the great thing about Ashes cricket is it's a continuous context, isn't it? Yeah. Where you have a chance to be on those highlight reels, you have a chance to obviously be written about, to be lauded, to be criticised in some ways. So, very much agree with you. It was very much the game of the periphery players. What else did you sort of note from that test match?
I know that we were dropping plenty. There was obviously the big debate following a test match that's since been resolved from an England selection perspective of whether Bairstow should keep the gloves. You've obviously been a big Folks fan for a while. How do you feel that Bairstow's retain the gloves?
Well, I think Bairstow's glove work, if you can, has obviously come under a lot of scrutiny. But I think the worrying thing is it seems to be affecting his batting somewhat.
Yeah.
There's obviously with the Ollie Pope injury, there's been talks of where do you put Bairstow, and I think right now, because his batting's quite fragile and he looks a little bit out of sorts, perhaps fitness wise not completely there. You couldn't even dare think of considering him for that position because he's got so much responsibility at the minute. But we're not obviously, last summer we saw folks with the gloves full time. I saw a different Johnny Bairstow, and that was when we were talking about the debates, and me and you disagreed on it. And I was saying folks needs the gloves. I don't think it was necessarily a folks need the gloves and Bairstow as a player. I just wonder whether is he burdened by the responsibility of the gloves.
I suppose one thing you would say is he's not horrifically out of form. He obviously got a run of ball 78 in the first Test match, which was only 3 tests ago.
Yeah.
So he's obviously not in the form of his life like he was last summer.
Mm-hmm.
He's had a long time out of the game. He's got some runs early on, struggled in the rest of the series. Do you think that in many ways this is a reflection or the conundrum around Bairstow and Folkes is answered very much by the fitness and the ability to be an all-rounder of Ben Stokes?
Potentially, it's a real tough one, isn't it? Because, like you said, the injury has had so much sort of influence on the position he's in now and the game experience he's had. It's just a natural sort of maybe just to come into an end of a purple patch, and it happens to fall within an Ashes series.
Because I must admit that I think, as you look at that side, you can't bat Ben Folkes at number 6. You can bat Johnny Bairstow at number 6. So how would you? You were always kind of fighting with how do you balance the side once
you were putting him in an abnormal position, weren't you? If you were going to fit him in with Folkes, I said that because I said I think I just puffed my cheeks and sort of went, well, maybe we'll have to open then.
Yeah, we'll have to. We'll come on to Ali in a minute, batting at number 3, but it just feels like not having Stokes as an all-rounder. You obviously need the 4 seamers. Walks at 8 really helps that.
Yeah.
You need a spinner in there. We've seen that every time England go in without a spinner, it rarely pays off.
Yeah.
And therefore, you start getting close to round pegs in square holes scenarios, and maybe we've got that many round pegs in square holes within this side at the moment that bringing Folkes in and batting him at kind of 7, or batting him at 6 and keeping Ali at 7, or tinkering around.
Yeah.
I think that it was just too many changes. So I understand why they've gone with Bairstow in the end.
There's been selection headaches obviously throughout this, hasn't there? Because every time you lose a game, and Australians have obviously faced this week, the massive temptation is for wholesale changes, isn't it? Like get 6 people out of the team, get him bowling, get that. When really, not to be obviously never been a selector of some sort, but it never seemed practical to make massive wholesale changes in that regard.
Yeah, I think that's what Australia do really well. You see that in their catching. They're a brilliant fielding side. Warner, for example.
Warner's worth 2 or 3 wickets, isn't he? Yeah.
The margins that he gives you in the slips.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if he's only getting 20, 30, because he's giving you wickets.
Yeah.
And I suppose that is the big argument around Folkes and Bairstow. Bairstow might give you more runs, and Folkes will probably burgle you a few wickets.
Yeah. One thing I was really impressed with from this Test match was England's ability to come back, because they could have easily lost their heads. There was a point in this game where it was getting a little bit ugly. England had a really, really energised sort of bowling performance, winning the toss again. Must be a decent coin there. Yeah. 2-sided coin maybe. But with that, it's Mark Wood bursts onto the scene, writes a new chapter in the series, blistering pace, get Australia out for a really, really, modest total in terms of obviously what you want to chase. England wobble significantly. You rely on Ben Stokes, that didn't look the fittest, coming out swinging and getting us somewhere near the target. And then the game was nicely poised there. That could have got to a point where it could have got really ugly, especially when Mitch Marsh was taking off. At that point, I was always after the second test thinking, yeah, we lost that, but we're still in the contest. At that point, even my mind was starting to sway a little bit. Is this where Australia really put the foot on the throat of England?
Well, I know that both yourself and one of our other friends was texting me while I was on holiday, and I read the room similar to both of you in the respect of we're throwing it away again. England throwing it away again.
Drops on 12, Mitch Marsh.
Mitch Marsh, when he started to pull away on that 100, desperation. Mark Wood obviously gets us back into the game, and then again in a brilliant position, just go and get the runs, get a lead, and we start throwing it away again. And Ben Stokes kind of I think that's the big thing of why Ben Stokes has to bat 6.
Yeah.
Is he's like a backstop.
Yeah.
He's like a never-ending insurance policy.
Yeah, and that's what England have obviously hedged the bets on. They've hedged the bets that they've got all these players. They're all a bit of a maverick. They all have their own style of play. You know, if one of them comes off, the probability is that we'll get a reasonable total.
Yeah.
Which is, you know, I think an under the radar kind of Baz ball theory approach that we've probably not took into contention when we've been frustrated with the, you know, the poor dismissals and the poor means and ways in which people have got out this series.
And in some ways, I suppose Headingley was a reflection of how closely matched these sides are. We've obviously been throwing away positions earlier in the series where Australia have taken advantage. Now we tried to throw away positions again.
Yeah.
Australia didn't take advantage. It is that kind of just showing the margins that we're playing.
It is interesting. Like I think I agree with you when we spoke about this in the past, where I think Australia have got the edge on England.
Yeah.
Like for like, pound for pound.
Yeah.
You'd put Australia higher. What evens the sides up is, I think, the spirit of the England team.
Yeah.
You know, I think they're well led. I think that there's no, you know, in past Ashes series where the wheels have really come off, there's been, you know, disputes between the players. I think they're collectively together, which is a big thing.
True.
And also the home conditions, obviously, have level that out as well. I think what was really important for the series, yes, England's win kept things alive, but what was really important was that for the first time, Australia looked a little bit. Just as there's, you know, certainly when you know, Harry Brook was batting alongside, you know, certain players, you know, when Woakes comes in, a little bit. I know they won by 3 wickets in the end. I'm never saying they were like plain sailing, but it got to a stage where Australia looked a little bit null of ideas for the first time in the series.
Yeah.
Where England, I know there's probably occasions in Lords where you thought England, in Edgbaston where you thought England were getting the upper hand, but to see England overcome that and find answers to, you know, some really tough bowling, it was tough to chase that pitch. It'll galvanise them somewhat.
To what extent because I remember on that final hour in Edgbaston, I always felt like Cummins and Lyon were going to do it. We just felt like we didn't have enough.
There was a turning point, wasn't there? There was a turning point because when Stokes bowls Khawaja, Cummins is stranded at one end, isn't he? And he's got Lyon at the other end. And I think they still need about 50 or 60 at that point. And Cummins takes the brave call to go, this over, I'm going big. And it's the Joe Root over. He says, we're going to get back into this game. I need a big over here.
Yeah. And so, and after that, which was probably about the last hour, and I always felt like they'd done it. To what extent did that, because I must admit, once Bairstow went, I just turned it off. I said, right, Nate, we're playing cards. We played cards every over and checked the over.
There's nothing more excruciating than radio sport, is there?
I was just like, we'll play a game of cards, and after every game of cards, I'll check the score. So slowly it dwindled down. How did it feel? Did it feel like similar to what Australia did at Edgbaston? Did it feel more nervy?
No, maybe it was just me. I don't want to sound overconfident, but I always what I liked about when I saw the England team was Chris Woakes coming in at 8, because he's not a reckless batsman. Do you know what I mean? You've got players like your Alis and your Braws and stuff like that, and they can damage you by hitting shots.
Yeah.
Chris Woakes is very conventional, safe pair of hands, a lot of experience. And I kind of knew that he would. I didn't know, but I kind of felt at ease that he was at the end with Harry Brook.
Yeah.
Harry Brook was playing great, by the way, and that's probably certainly in Ashes cricket, him bursting onto the stage, isn't it now? I think he's certainly come into the series, and I'm excited to see what he can do in the next couple of games. But Chris Woakes coming there, I always felt that, you know, it was the ideal partner. I think you might have said this a few times when we were watching the Lords game and England were losing wickets and they still had 70 chase. You were saying, we joked, didn't we, about, you know, because we were getting bumped left, right, and centre. Yeah. If there's some ill-fated concussion here, you know, Chris Woakes would be perfect.
Yeah.
He's just what you want coming in. So I think that particular component in the batting lineup allowed for me to feel like it was ideally, it didn't need boundaries. Boundaries were hard to come by. It needed prodding it around the field. Yeah. Cummins again was defensive. He was people on the boundary. You know, he thought Harry Brook's going to throw his wicket away, and in the end he kind of did. But the job was, by the time he came in, I think England needed 20. Yeah. And you had Mark Wood at one end who had a decent flash with the bat. It was, I think, a little bit underrated with the bat when it times. Yeah. And obviously Chris Woakes, who's got a Test 100 to his name. So it's a big difference to having Josh Tom come in. Or,
I think that's been the issue for England early on in the series is 8, 9, 10 Jack. Yeah. Always looks really, really weak. Woakes is such an underrated player. I think in many ways.
Bowled really well as well, by the way.
Yeah,
bowled really well.
It's brilliant because what he has a little bit more of is he's zip 84, 85. Like it just there's a little bit more pacing. You've seen that from Broad in this series is Broad's got his paces up just into those mid-80s. He's not, obviously bowling anywhere near what Wood or Cummins is bowling.
Yeah.
But just getting it up away from 79, 81 does get you wickets. And I think
many a good batsmen have had problems with walks.
Yeah.
Virat Kohli's had problems with walks, I think he's very, very, very rarely let England down in England.
Yeah. So Walk stays in for the Old Trafford Test match. So if we have a look towards the Old Trafford Test match, it's absolutely pissing it down.
Yeah.
It looks like conditions that would suit Jimmy Anderson.
Are we the most northern podcast? Are we the most local correspondents? So like it one on ITV on Breakfast TV where they pull in someone local and it says the location. Could we be called upon for that kind of coverage? Because right now I don't want to feel bleak, but we're going to one of these test matches, aren't we? And I look through your veranda window, and the day that seems to be a complete washout is the one that we've paid £80 tickets for.
Yes.
And we're in that god-awful stand that looks like it's put together by Jenga blocks.
Yes.
The Foster's party stand.
Yeah, we have tickets for Saturday.
Yeah.
It looks like it's full rain bedded in for Saturday at the moment.
Yeah.
However, forecast looks a little bit better for tomorrow, Thursday and Friday.
So there's a chance we'll get some cricket in,
So Anderson comes in, home ground. He's obviously got his Anderson end. Everyone likes to mention that.
Yeah.
And the weather's suiting him. Good move, bad move, sentimental move, Tong. Would you have preferred a bit of pace? How do you feel?
Sorry, I'm just noticing this gum condition I've got. I was actually really for the Anderson inclusion.
Right.
I mean, I wasn't, when I say I was really for, I wasn't, there's been a lot of kind of, you're only as good as your last game, and so a lot of people seem to have wrote off Jimmy Anderson.
Yeah.
Under the lights, grey skies, Old Trafford, bowling from his own end. I think you'd kind of be a fool to write him off, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
Look, the first two pitches weren't suited to Jimmy Anderson. He even quoted after the first one. He said, "If this is what the pitches are like, I might as well retire now," which I think was a little bit, toys at the pram kind of thing. But I said to you, it just feels like a nice stage for give us one last go. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You've still got a lot of skills. You've still got a lot of ability. What more can you give us? And I think that's what Stokes will be saying to him. Stokes might say that, look, I might have overlooked you at times in this test. I might have got Ollie Robinson to bowl overs that people would have suggested, why is Jimmy Anderson not bowling those overs? Yeah. But his home ground, it kind of feels like I'm getting sentimental there, saying that he can't not perform on his own ground. But the omens are in place for him. The stars are aligned there. And he's still, let's be honest, he's even, you looked at him in Pakistan, you looked at him last summer, he's still no mug. And he's got one of those performances. I think we were talking about this downstairs where he could take 4 or 5 wickets in a session.
Yeah, I think when I was on holiday a week ago, post the Headingley Test match, my thought was go with Tong. Pace has been really important in this series so far.
Commodity, hasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nip, pace, go with the other fast bowler, don't be sentimental. We need to win this match, obviously, to stay in the series. And I think every cricket fan really would love this to go. I mean, obviously you can't talk for the Australians, but it would be great if this went to the Oval 2-all, wouldn't it?
Oh, for sure.
Brilliant.
For sure. We've got a bit of good weather.
Yeah, true. But the more the week has gone on, we've seen the weather. I think that it suits Anderson, obviously, the grey skies. I think it was on the Wisdom podcast this morning, I was listening to it, and I thought this was a really good point. I think it might have been Mark Butcher that made it. Is having a bowler that can bowl dry is going to be really important in this lineup. So Robinson, for example, he goes about 2 and over, doesn't he?
Yeah.
He's economical. If you brought in a Josh Tong when you've got Ali in the team,
he's not been economical, Ali, as he's taken wickets, but they've fancied him a little bit.
Never going to hold up an end.
Yeah.
Wood, he's got the extra pace. It can go around the park.
A few buys.
Yeah. They could go after walks and it just gives you that guy who can go 2 and over, under 2 and over, control the game. And obviously that's not what Anderson's for, but there's that element up for it.
He's playing almost his subcontinent role, isn't he?
Yeah, exactly that. But also, with the rain around, like you just said, this is probably going to be a 3-day match. So you're going to need to bowl a team out quickly in a session and a half. Mm-hmm. Anderson, Broad, Wood, Walks in England all have bowlers that have the ability to do that. So I don't see an issue with that. I agree with that sentiment. I
think it's key not to get involved in the hearsay of obviously where James Anderson's been at in this Ashes series. I think if you asked a lot of the England dressing room, even if you asked Stuart Broad, would you completely write Warner off now? Is he an easy wicket? I think all the bowlers would say no. They'd say he's still a good scorer.
Yeah.
I think likewise, if you ask a lot of the Australian batsmen, Jimmy Anderson's in. Oh, is that? I think they'd all still be very wary in this scenario, in this format, especially where the sort of series is sort of at. I think that you'd be very surprised to see anyone in a playing capacity write James Anderson off.
You're not taking too many risks against him.
No. I don't think you come out and go, all right, we can swing at this bloke.
No.
Like you said, even one thing Anderson will give you, if nothing else, is economy. Is obviously limiting the score. And when you've got a bloke at the other end who can bowl 94 miles per hour,
exactly,
whether he'll be able to do it on this pitch, I don't know. And you've got other bowlers, a very hard one. Broad's having a great series.
Yeah.
And then there's a spin element at Old Trafford, which it tends to do. It's got the makeup of being, a decent bowling attack for England.
I think that is one thing that everyone said about Wood in the last game is Wood will get wickets from other people at the other end because of the pace that he's bowling. So you might see a different Anderson from that perspective.
Yeah.
Is that if Wood and Anderson are bowling in partnership,
someone's tendered him up. Wood's tendered somebody up.
Yeah. And Anderson's just bowling a nice line and length, nipping it around.
Yeah.
They suddenly decide to take a risk against Anderson.
Yeah.
You're quickly in trouble. So I don't mind that one at all. The next one I am worried about.
Okay.
Moeen Ali at 3.
Yeah. It's kind of, it feels like hands tied territory, doesn't it? Because it feels like a selection that's allowed for everyone who likes to bat where they like to bat to retain the spot.
Yeah.
Is that a good assessment?
I agree. I do.
It's a kind of bonus wicket, isn't it? It's a kind of, with no one really to bat here. So the person that's going to bat here, there's not a huge price on his wicket anyway. And it could just pay off.
Yeah.
It could fall. When he came out to bat, I don't know if you were listening to it on your radio device at the time in Havar or Split, wherever you were.
Yeah.
But when you heard Moeen Ali walk into bat, what was your immediate thoughts? Because I think I shrugged my shoulders a little bit because I'd seen Harry Brook bat 3 there, and I kind of thought, well, you know what, we're chasing down 250, 260, whatever it is. If he comes in and knocks 40, I'm happy.
No, yeah.
You know what I mean?
In the run chase, I didn't mind it as an idea. Because one, you get Brook, the more junior of the two, back into 5.
Yeah.
And also, that is kind of, Ali is more of a white ball specialist, isn't he, really? Or has had more kind of...
He's very invested in IPL and franchise cricket these days, isn't he? So he's used to that sort of speed of coming in high up the order and,
Yeah, I didn't mind it as a number 3 in the chase. I mind it as a number 3. Say that we lose the toss tomorrow.
Yeah.
Australia sends us in.
Mm-hmm.
You always say add 2 onto the score, and we're on 0. I think, well, if Crawley goes there, and I've got Ali coming in.
It's an argument though with loads of rain about that. You kind of need to get your runs quick.
Well, that's the old county pro kind of get them. One's always got its name on you. Get them before it gets you. Moeen Ali doesn't feel like a test number 3.
No, he's certainly not. I don't think he claims to be. I think he's just the only person who's volunteered.
The wacky idea I have, and it is wacky. I know it's wacky. Was Wokes in the first innings put Wokes at 3 because he could, like a much more sensible kind of batsman. People have often talked about, could Wokes bat higher up?
Yeah. You belong in this party stand.
Yeah,
for like 7 pints.
And then Ali at number 3 in a chase.
Yeah.
Because the truth is though, I think the person who really should be batting there in the circumstances that we have is Root.
But that ship has sailed. I think we can bleat and moan about wanting Root to bat 3.
Yeah,
I'd rather him score 100 at 4.
Yeah,
and if he's got some kind of mental block, if he's not comfortable, he's not happy there. I want to obviously cash in on Root for as long as we've got him.
Yeah,
because there's times in this series where I've kind of really thought, I'm glad we've got Root.
Yeah, we've got a lot of 5s and 6s, haven't we?
Yeah.
Because Ollie Pope's not even number 3, really.
Yeah. So we know that. Are we going to lead on to the teams here?
Well, we obviously know that that's England.
Yeah. So there's no change.
No
except James Anderson, Ollie Robinson, and Moeen Ali at 3.
Yeah. And now Australia have done the one thing that I really didn't want them to do.
They've gone with 2 all-rounders and they've not played Todd Murphy, have they?
Yeah. I think that's very clever.
Clever being why? Because it spins at Old Trafford, apparently.
It's a 3 or 4 day game in the rain. You're not going to be bowling much spin. They've got, how many bowlers have they essentially got there? 6 seamers.
Yeah,
they got 5 seamers.
Yeah, Hazelwood, Cummins, Stark, Green, and Mitch Marsh.
5 seamers.
Yeah,
so
and I'm guessing if they need a little bit of spin, they might turn to Travis Head or Smith.
Yeah, Head's not too bad, is he?
Well, a few pies, I think.
Oh yeah, but, he's He's a similar.
I think I'm having head ball at me than the others.
He's similar to Root, though, isn't he? Like he can do a job.
Yeah, I'd say Root's a more established bowler than Head for sure.
Yeah.
But anyway, you seem to like this. I thought young Todd Murphy looked quite nervous in the last Test match. By the way, that's completely fine. I think I get the yips if I play for England.
I'm not,
but it just there was a, when England were chasing down that toll, there was opportunities for Cummins to bowl in, and whether it was this sort of alphaness in Cummins to sort of go, I'm getting the ball. He's very quick to do that, which is great. It's what what great top players do. They give themselves the responsibility. He grabbed the ball a lot of occasions. He probably bowled, in my view, 2 lengthy spells. He probably exhausted himself a little bit in overs where he could have turned to, but it just shows the gaping hole Nathan Lyon leaves.
Yeah. My concern isn't. I don't think we're going to be bowling much spin in this Test match.
Is that it we've seen of Todd Murphy? Is he coming back?
Oh, he's a very good bowler. Yeah.
I mean, I don't mean never coming back for this Ashes series.
No, yeah. I think if you look at Nathan Lyon starts his Test career versus Todd Murphy starts his Test career. Todd Murphy's had a fly. There's always like loads of time, isn't there, for you to grow into your career. I think he'll be fine.
It's just obviously a baptism of fire as it coming to a third Test.
I think more than anything, they don't need to win this match. The draw's fine for them. Retain the Ashes.
Oh, I'll say you want to win, yeah.
But we need to win, and it gives them a real insurance of, if you think about it, Stark's coming in, Carey's coming in at 8 now, Stark's coming in at 9, Cummins is coming in at 10. With Wood, who can blow away a tail, they've just really shored it up, haven't they? I think they must be wary of the 2 sort of batting performances at Headingley, because I said this, I think England found a bit of a kink in their armour. That long tail they kind of sort of had, beforehand, it's probably just been exposed finally as a little bit, where that excess pace, the people like, what I mean by that is the Starks and the Cummins of the world that can flash the bat and get a quick 27-30. Wood eradicates that kind of thing, doesn't he? Because he'll bowl like a full leg delivery. You saw Kawaji's and Stark's dismissals in the first innings. They were both bowled. Yeah. They were real signs of pace, weren't they? Where they just not got to it quick enough. Yeah. Where you've got a lot more time when you've got the likes of Robinson and Anderson there. Yeah. So you are right. It's certainly. I think they've certainly been wary of the tail, and I think they've looked to amend that. I think some people posture that it's a negative approach and that Australia have been negative all the way through this series, and this is a continuation of that fact. I just think against England, if you rack up a score above 350, you're always kind of in the game, aren't you? Because we've always got like a collapse in us. There's always a time that Stokes doesn't pay off.
I think one good thing for England, I look at those bowlers, and Stark's probably the quickest, isn't he? Followed by Cummins, and then Hazelwood, then it whittles down to probably Mitch Marsh and
Green and Marsh, isn't it?
Yeah. What I mean by that is, there's no one there who's like, I mean, if they're all in that 80 to 90 category, let's just say, it's always, if you get England batsmen, they get into a bit of rhythm, really seeing it well. It's coming off the bat nicely a little bit, I know it's going to be wet, so the outfield's probably going to be slow, so boundaries might not be as in full flow as they have been in other Test matches, but it kind of, if it becomes like a recognisable pace, and a couple of the England boys are in rhythm, without that spinner, I think Jonathan Agnew used to always describe it as, you're on a motorway, then you suddenly come to a roundabout, and you're having to change your tacks, all of a sudden your indicators are on, you're looking left and right. Does just having an all pace attack allow England to stay in rhythm and not bring bacon? We saw many times in the first 2 Test matches where England were in really good positions, drinks break, whatever, Nathan Lyon comes on, and Australia pulled them back in there. Yeah. Without that spinner, could England let loose and carry on and flow?
Yeah.
You see the point?
No, I do see your point. I am of the opinion that you should play a spinner. I hate it when England don't play a spinner. When we go for, I think it's a really negative approach. But I think you can afford to be in that negative approach when you don't need to win the game. And I think that's what Australia said is, with the weather around, if we don't get bowled out, if we avoid getting bowled out for 120, we've retained the Ashes and we go to the Oval, we try and win it. And I think that is what they're going for. And that was where the wind was kind of taken, the air was taken out of my tyres when you told me. I thought, it's clever.
Yeah.
Right. Anyway, let's move on to the women's Ashes. Yeah. So the Australian women's team have...
Before you start this, can I just ask a question? How do you feel? In fact, go on, do what you need to do and I'll ask you then.
Okay. I think I know what you're going to ask me, so I think it ties in.
Okay.
Australian women have retained the Ashes. Currently, in fact, I need to check the score. It's before going into today's ODI.
Yeah.
It was 8-6 to Australia.
Yeah.
Which means that England had a chance to win the last ODI and level the series 8-8, which would be a good result. Because last time in England, it was a pretty bad drubbing for England.
Yeah.
What do you think about? So Adam Collins.
Yeah.
Saw some criticism for him.
I know that I've seen this comment.
Yeah. About it being on at the same time as the men's Ashes.
Yeah.
How do you feel about that?
I think it's great, and I think if I remember rightly, Adam Collins was sort of almost he was championing the women's Ashes, saying that it's been so good, it can stand on its own 2 feet, so it could almost be on a different part of the summer, a different year perhaps.
Yeah.
I think if we're going to get off after the highs of the Ashes, we're going to go on to the 100, aren't we? And one of the biggest positives people say about the 100 is the fact that how it's managed to grow the women's game.
Yeah.
And I think having that sort of trampoline of being on one side of the men's game has allowed it to sort of be put on the pedestal it needs to sort of thrive and grow, etc. Actually, for someone that doesn't claim to be a cricket anorak, and I don't have the time to be engulfed and consume all forms of cricket and watch county cricket, watch women's cricket, watch men's international cricket, etc. All the franchises that obviously we have to keep up with now. It's been a nice sort of go-to when, on the flip side of when the men's game's finished.
Yeah.
So I think having that has allowed me to sort of compare and contrast. And because they've both been great series, I think it works this way.
Yeah.
I think it really does. The format of the women's Ashes for me is questionable. I mean, I think, in the ideal world, we have 5 tests. Well, I think commerciality and a couple of things come into that, don't they? But having this blend of fixtures come in quite quick succession, running alongside while the men's tournament's on, I think has kind of connected the two. There's both the men's and women's cricket together.
Yeah.
I think it's had more of a positive effect this way.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's almost in many ways like what we've just seen when Wimbledon's been on. Is when Wimbledon's on, you might get brought in by watching one match.
Yeah.
And then there's the next match on later and you carry on watching that. And then suddenly you're immersed into all forms of tennis that are being played at Wimbledon. I think it's very much the same thing. You watch the last session of the men's test match.
Sky just naturally is on a reel, isn't it? So it just flips onto that, and before you know it, you just
the women's T20's on. Watching that, and I think particularly for the more casual cricket fans, non-cricket fans who might be tuning into the Ashes for the first time, you get to see kind of both sides of the Ashes. And I think that's brilliant. I think it's obviously brilliant the performance that England have put in. We've seen 2 really competitive Ashes series, 2 kind of fight backs from both England sides.
It's a tremendous result, I think, because we've spoke about it before on podcasts, that how dominant the women's Australia team have been. I think no one's really been able to land a glove on them. And for England to do this, I think even if you catch up with Alicia Healy, who's obviously a good Australian stock, I think her uncle, obviously, ex-wicketkeeper of Australia during the 90s. And you speak to her about this, and I think she's very much humbled by the fight back of England. And she's been asked some questions that she's probably not been used to being asked on post-match sort of press conferences. She used to probably coming out there going, right, we just battered somebody else. And she's saying she actually was challenged a few times, and she went, it's all right for us to lose games, This is a really good side. And what we're sort of seeing, and I know there's going to be still disparity amongst, various international sides of the women's game, but we're seeing India and England now get to a level where there's a real competition. Funnily enough, it obviously reflects the men's game as well, where the superpowers are obviously, firmly at the top, but it can only be a good thing, and it's a step. I think it's certainly been a step forward, and it's certainly enhanced that side of cricket for this summer for sure.
I'm just looking at the final game, the women's 3rd ODI at Taunton. So England have got 285. Australia are chasing a revised total of 269. That must be Douglas Lewis. And they need 82 off about 12 overs, so it's that just under 7 over. With 4 wickets left, so England are well into that.
So again, there's not seem too many. All these games seem to go down to the wire as well.
And I mean, you look at the crowd there at Taunton, really packed in under rainy skies. I think it's a great thing for cricket, and I agree. I think that I understand where Adam Collins is coming from, and it comes from a very good place. That it's about championing the women's game and saying, why can't it stand alone and be a separate entity? But I think in some ways the Ashes being a festival of cricket, all forms of cricket, it's actually great for it to almost have a bit of a Wimbledon feel.
Yeah.
And kind of be a time where the whole country tunes in.
Yeah.
And kind of really gets into Ashes fever.
It's kind of left you wanting more every single test match, hasn't it? It's kind of every single after. I don't know about you, but even after like the defeats, I was like, right, we need to go again. Let's get back out and we can claw back into this.
It really is. I mean, it's like the Football World Cup. You really do kind of get into a fever with it, don't you?
Yeah,
It does really kind of. It's not just leaving you wanting more, but you wish that cricket could be like that all the time. And obviously it can't, and that's just the way it is. But it is just such a great pin-up of where everyone tunes in, everyone's WhatsApping you.
Yeah.
People who don't usually like cricket are asking, "What's this mean? What's that mean?"
We've got two lads coming to the cricket on Saturday who are not, they wouldn't class themselves as purists sort of, long-term cricket fans, but eating into the Ashes, drinking it in, that kind of thing. It's good. It's really good.
So, from that example of brilliant Test cricket,
you knocked me down a few pegs, aren't you?
To the juxtaposition of the India-West Indies Test series. Obviously, India just absolutely battered the West Indies in the Caribbean.
Full guns blazing. There's no exceptions here on selection, is there?
No.
It's a full-strength team. All the big names are there.
So a brilliant century from Jaiswal on debut. Looks like a really good player.
Yeah.
So 10th in the match from Ravi Ashwin. I suppose it's brilliant for India, playing really well, but
nice to see him get out to the Caribbean.
Yeah, the West Indies,
I
fighting a losing battle.
I kind of I sent you this. I sent you a screenshot and just put grid. Because I think West Indies won the toss. I believe they got bowled out for 150 or something like that. And I think at close of play, India were 80 for none. And I think they were, by the morning session of the next day, they were well advanced of obviously West Indies total. I mean, look, there is so much admiration, so much I love about the Ashes being in this country. I love the stories it comes with. I mean, everyone's got their own route to the Ashes, haven't they? When it comes to obviously, the history and where it's at. I saw friends of mine at Greenmount Cricket Club. I think Mark Taylor did a speech there. They obviously had a plethora of Australian pros in the late 80s and 90s. So there were stories being told there, and the Ashes really is the sort of the flag bearer when it comes to this format. What it doesn't show you then is the kind of ugly rip back side of obviously what you see across the world. So you take West Indies for example. Desmond Haynes, I think, passed out a Test debut cap to somebody, and it was one of the most. They were sort of blurring out on the social media profile for the West Indies cricket team. The rally around the West Indies kind of theme tune that has become like kind of a sort of a national anthem for these islands that all unite. And he's saying, Test cricket to me is still important. And I kind of looked at him and thought, legend of the game. I just kind of think that the current generation are with you here. The West Indies are sick of losing.
Yeah.
Okay. They're sick of their top players, taking franchise contracts. They understand it because, why wouldn't you? We all know about the economic conundrum when it comes to players choosing franchise contracts. But, it gets to a stage, doesn't it, where you have to ask yourself, even as a cricket fan, what is the quality of this product? And I think you gave a really good monologue on this, didn't you?
Yeah.
Do you want to sort of elaborate on that?
I can't remember what it was. Go on. What was it?
Well, you were talking about there comes a point where, we can enjoy obviously what's happening back home in England, Australia, but at what point do we sort of, I mean, the biggest question will come next year when West Indies tour England. You'll see a very, very familiar side, the holders of the world, but you'll see a couple of rookies in there as well. And I fully expect England to be dominant.
Oh, yeah. I mean, if Anderson and Broad decide to play next summer, Anderson will probably go past Shane Warne.
Yeah.
Broad will probably, he'll surpass 600 probably in this Test series. But, they'll continue like they've never, broken a sweat. They'll average 20, best part of 20, 19, the ball.
Yeah.
And it'll just be like county championship.
What we're saying here is it's so predictable, but it's become so predictable, and it wasn't always as predictable. Do you know what I mean?
Well, in many ways, it's so poetic that it's India that are going out there doing this smashing. I know that anyone could do this smashing in some ways, but this is what India and the big three have created through the revenue streams of the ICC, they constantly jockey for position to make sure that these revenue streams are ultra capitalistic, suit them to the ground, make sure that their pockets are lined. And this is the result of it: is you don't have competitive Test cricket.
You feel a little bit helpless, don't you? Because I've listened to dedicated West Indies podcasts, the Caribbean Cricket Podcast, which is a great podcast, for anything. They've taught me a lot, certainly, about the outlook towards West Indies. And their biggest frustration is that people always say cricket needs a strong West Indies, we should help that. But there's very little action, very little intervention.
Yeah.
And until we see any of that, I think, some of the major cricket boards, England for one, I think it was mooted that Harry Brutt's going to get the first all sort of international contracts, which counteracts that kind of multi-franchise deal that's been bandied about. So that's some of the big three fighting back a little bit to say, if you want our players, you're going to have to pay for them. They're not going to come cheap. They're looking at increasing match fees, aren't they? Across the ICC. Well, I raised an idea. Have you done it about the ICC? Obviously, putting a tax on people taking players into franchise leagues. But until we see anything significant, we are just going to see this gap get bigger and bigger. And you'll enjoy less of the contest between, net Test playing nations.
Yeah.
And these ones, they will become a rarity. They'll become Ryder Cups. They'll become, showcase events. And that's not what we want. We as Test cricket fans, we want our team to win, but we want to go there. We want to experience the elements, don't we? We want to go to West Indies, and I want the fire and the fast bowlers, and I want the flamboyant batting. It might be a bit of it's become probably a corny cliche that amongst West Indian cricket now, but it's what it's capable of, and there's potential there.
Well, in many ways, with the pitches that are in the West Indies and the players that they produce, why couldn't they play their own version of Bazball?
Yeah.
Do you know, why couldn't Kieran Pollard bat at number 6 and come in and, obviously not Kieran Pollard now at this stage in his career, but, the Andre Russells, the Kieran Pollards that the West Indies produce, those number 6 all-rounders that can smash the ball out of the park. Could they not? I mean, obviously, there's just not the finances there to support players to make those decisions.
What's the press is? A lot of high-profile people, especially in Australia and India, have been coming out saying maybe they should just disband and the individual islands should get Test status.
Yeah, I think that's one of the maddest things I've ever heard.
Chappell from Australia is one of the worst people to say this. I think he said something about West Indies need to ask themselves a serious question. Are they wasting time, especially their own, that kind of thing. And then
I find it mad, right, that you think that breaking up an island, you think that Jamaica versus India or Barbados versus India,
these tiny, minute islands,
is going to be stronger than all of the islands together versus India.
Yeah,
it's like if Yorkshire played India.
Yeah,
it's worse than England playing India.
Well,
I don't get that.
That particular podcast just said instead of people tell us to disband, why is no one actually coming up with something logical to help us?
Yeah, that is so illogical.
Yeah, so that's just obviously a bit of a negative light, but hopefully some positive things to talk about in the next couple of days. I think the whole cricketing world would love to, well, maybe not Australians, but the whole cricketing world would love to see us go 2-2 and take it to the Oval. How are you feeling?
We need to win it. I'd love us to win the toss tomorrow. Bowl first. Get right into them. Get some wickets. You need to win this game in 3.5 days, don't you, with the weathers that's about. But we've got to do it. I think Ben Stokes said they know what they've got to do as a side. It's important for everyone that they go out and do it. Get to the Oval 2-all. I think that's brilliant for Test cricket. It's brilliant for English cricket. I think it's brilliant for Australian cricket. It would probably then start to fit the billing of a series that could rival 2005. So let's hope for that.
We do a rain check in a live session maybe on the Sunday?
Yes, we'll keep an eye on it.
Keep an eye on it.
Yes.
Enjoy the Test match. Hopefully the rain stays away and we'll catch you soon. Take care.